morning, everybody. This is Shanda on Demand, and I've got, I think, a really enlightening training for you guys today. So I would recommend you have a paper and a pen. And the reason why I'm saying that is that your mind hopefully is going to jog. And oh, I see Alice Doyle's got, is it Doyne? I'm so bad at that. Yes? Okay, good. I see some of you guys have papers and pens and some of the hardcore swag out there. I love that. This is a hardcore swag legacy creator. It makes me feel powerful wearing it to remind me of what my intention is and what I'm doing out here. Hi, Kendra Wallace. I was messaging you in the Facebook group this morning. Rita, Lorinda, nice to see you. Awesome, Morgo. Jasmine. Okay, so I'm going to get back to work. Dr. Kim, you're always so bright in here. I love it. Okay, so I literally have 2 pages of notes for you this morning. So you guys ready to work? We ready to work? And actually instead of people who are watching us on social media that are just scrolling, stop the scroll because this could put real income in your bank account, like just as if you were in our masterminds. And some of you guys on Zoom, you guys are actually in our masterminds, but everybody on social media are not. Okay, so let's rock and roll. So the purpose of this is if I was thinking like, how can I be as valuable as possible? And it was like, I'm going to turn my air conditioning on. If I needed to generate $1 million, of course you can put any number in here. Okay, like you don't have to put $1 million, but I'm going to go from $1 million because I spent a lot of my life inching my way up and I can never get those days back. Right. And so your belief is connected with your action 100%. And so there's two aspects. You either become highly naive, which is what I did. I feel like I was naive enough to make it. And if I would have understood what it would take from me, I think I would have been intimidated. Some of you guys are smarter than me. You're more intimidated at the beginning. But the challenge is that might be slowing you down because now you got to work on your belief. Does that make sense? Yes. So if you are just one of those people who is like, I'm coachable, I do whatever my coach says, and you're blissfully naive, then I do believe that you scale faster. Okay. And just based on what I've seen. And so you can truly choose the character that you want to operate in. And there's a lot of data out there that shows that if you are skeptical or you are cautious, that you have a much harder chance in actually being at the top of your own game. So what does that tell you? It kind of backs into what I was just saying, that if you're naive, you can be naive to really make it fairly quickly. If you are someone who's not naive and maybe you have been hurt when you got hit, if you've been hurt when you got hit and that hurt is still lingering in you, it feels a little bit like PTSD in growing a business or investing money, then you really have to work on your beliefs. So I'm going to tackle both sides of this, okay? So if I was going to generate $1 million, I would never give myself a year to do it. And the reason why I wouldn't give myself a year to do it is because I don't want to get hurt I want to avoid as much hurt without being careful. Okay. And what I mean by that is if we all were really honest and we tracked our days, you will see how much time gets wasted in a day. Okay. Like we have something in Meant to Be Live called the 168 method. And it basically is a process that we take people through that are really busy or overwhelmed. And we show them how they have so much more intimacy in their day when they do this method. So if you're Meant to Be Live, you have not done 168 method in your back office, you should do that. In your Kajabi site, you should do that. If you don't know what I'm talking about on social media, it's because you don't have access to what they have access in the mastermind. Okay, so just forget that I said that. So if I was going to generate $1 million, I would not give myself a year to do it. Some of you guys are so darn logical that you are hurting your ability to be financially free because you are so logical. And that is control. And control is brutal for growth. Okay, it's absolutely brutal. It's great for getting started, but it's brutal for growth. Okay, so here's what I'm going to say. So if I want to make $1 million, the first thing I look at is if I increase my price. You should write this down because you should actually just do this with yourself later. Do the math. If I increase my price, then I'm going to increase often my time. So now, some of you guys have been taught this time is money thing, this, how do I get my time back? Well, if you want your time back, you need to have volume. Okay, so now that goes back to your risk factor. How willing are you to risk financially? Are you willing to sell your house, hire a marketing agency to take that hat off and just go all in? And most of you are not. And so this is why the data is very clear on how most people don't access financial freedom because they're trying to do it carefully. Okay, and I'll revert. Do you think that if you knew somebody who knew how to bring you leads, who knew how to help you be profitable, that that would be a high risk? No. Not if they've been doing it for 15, 17 years. It wouldn't be a high risk. The risk is all in your implementation. And what really messes people up is they spend more time trying to learn every step when all you have to figure out is the piece that I'm doing right now. This is connected to your vision. When you see it and it's absolutely clear, a clear mind is unstoppable. Okay, when it's absolutely clear and you back in the math, then you could work on your belief or being naive. Okay, like either or works, and I'll back into all that. So if I want to make $1 million fast, I would increase my price, which means I'm going to increase my time. Okay, and that just is what it is. If I want to be worried about pricing, like, can I sell that? Where my people buy it? You know, like all that type of stuff. Who's that all about? Me. It's all about you. It's all about your own personal development. And so you could see how our personal development often gets in the way of our success. You guys hearing me? Yes? It is 100% the game. Okay? So if I reduce my price, then I can reduce my time. But here's the thing, I need volume. And so when I look at volume, the question is, how am I going to get volume? Well, volume, I mean, you can spend many, many years working to get volume of leads, volume of people to go pay to be on bigger stages. So then can you see how like it starts to get more complicated? Like volume does start to get more complicated because volume means somewhere you have to be good or someone else has to be good and you're going to pay financially, like really pay. So this is why when an entrepreneur is growing, the first thing they want to work on is, yes, their education, but they want to work on their education to get clear on what is the amount of money that I want to make. So we're going to use $1 million right now. I'm going to use a different color. We're going to use $1 million right now. And I was working this out and I was like, okay, so if I wanted to make $1 million, remember, so if I would have known what I knew today, I would have found I know this sounds crazy, but I'm just going to say it. I would have found the most abundant, which is probably the most expensive. I would not find a spiritual coach. I found a spiritual coach. I worked with spiritual coaches. If you're a spiritual coach, I'm not putting you down, okay, at all. But most spiritual coaches talk about, I'm not talking about biblical, I'm talking about like just spiritual. They talk about you and they talk about, it's too wrapped around you. Does that make sense, you guys? Like, so if I'm wrapped around me when I started, I was consumed with, I want this goal, but I have all this disbelief. And so the more you get entertained with you, the year goes by. Okay, so I would have went and I would have found a coach, a mentor that had already sold a very, very high ticket price. And I would lean on their belief on what they saw in me, and I would have been naive to believe them. Okay, have you ever had somebody speak into you and you're like, oh, I see it now? Any of you guys put yes or no in the chat? Have you ever spoken to someone? It's like, oh, like they brought so much clarity to you. So what level of income do you want the clarity at? Do you want it at the level of, do you want it at the level of, I told you in the military, honey. Do you want it at the, Ash, not right now, sweetheart. It's not gonna be for 2 hours, okay? Do you want it at the level of, $2,000 package? Or do you want it at the level of a $10,000 package? Or do you want it at the level of a $50,000 package? Or do you want it at the level of a $100,000 package? Are you guys following me? Putting your belief aside for a second. Just put your belief aside for a second. How many of you guys, if you knew how to sell $100,000 package, okay, don't get into the how would I deliver yet, okay, or how would I create that much value for someone? Don't get into your heart yet. Just stay in your mind for a second. Just stay in your mind for a second. Do you think if I took $100,000 package, I'm just doing the math. I'm not in reality yet, right? I'm not in what would it be? What would I put in it? I'm not in any of that. I'm just in doing the math. If I had the ability, if I had the skill set, which is where mentorship often comes in, a lot of times people choose the wrong mentors. Okay, I'm just telling you this. They choose based on price, they choose based on what they can afford, they don't choose based on vision. People do this in their marriages, they do it in their fitness, they do it in their relationships, they stay in bad relationships because they think, well, there's enough goodness here. It's like, no. Like, why are we still settling? Because we haven't stopped and really developed out a vision that it was like, well, that would be kind of cool. Like, if I knew how to sell 10 packages at 100,000, I have now made $1 million. Okay. I'm not talking about product yet. I'm not talking about what it is. When I did real estate, I backed in, okay, if I sell 250,000, I don't even know if there is a $250,000 house anymore with inflation. But if I sold a $250,000 house and I made 3%, then I make $7,500. If I wanted to make $1 million, and this is how I literally do it, and I get $7,500 on a house I sold, then I have to sell 133 in a month. See how the volume goes up? But if I sold, if I specialized, write that word down. If I specialized in a $2 million house when I was in real estate and I made 3%, now I made 60,000, right? And so if I take my $1 million price point divided by 60,000, I only have to sell 16 people a home in a year. Are you guys getting what I'm saying here? Yes? So it reverse engineers. You have to reverse engineer the number, and then you get to the how. How would I find 16 people who could afford a $2 million house? How do I find 10 people who could afford 1,000? So that might get me an answer, or I might come to a brick wall and be stopped, right? Is this starting to jog your minds a little bit? I might ask that question, and when I ask that question, how would I find 10 people who could afford a $100,000 coaching package, or 16 people who could afford a $2,000 home to buy? I might run into a wall on that. Like I might go, well, a country club, well, I don't belong to a country club. I might just get blocked. So write this down. If you get blocked, ask a different question, but don't abandon the math. Ask a different question. Okay, so what attracts an ideal customer client? Messaging. It's always messaging. So this is why it always starts with the client. Okay, so I'm going to take the $100,000 client. It always starts with the $100,000 client. Okay, so, or the $2 million house client. Put in your number, right? In my head, I'm like, so if I only had to sell 10 $100,000 packages to make $1 million, then the first thing I did, I took myself through this exercise before I prepared this training for you. And I was like, okay, so for me, I need to know the values there for the client. So I'm like, okay, so if I worked with 10 people, then, and I met them 2 times a month, and I met them 2 times in person a year. And then I was like, no, a better package would be 2 hours a quarter working with them to deep dive on the quarter, and a monthly check-in call, a weekly tracker so I could see what they're doing every single week and hitting their numbers, so that every quarter I'm meeting with them. And so I was like, so basically, what would it cost me to be able to deliver that? A virtual assistant at $3,000 a month. It would $700 a month for an accountant to make sure that we're running our cash through. And so my cost would be $44,400 on $1 million offer for 10 people, 100,000. This is a 95% profit margin. So now my eyes are open. Does that make sense? And so now I go, well, how much time? So I created the package. I did this in seconds because all I'm doing is backing in. So the thing about this is I'm already clear on what I would deliver. Some of you guys are not clear on what you would deliver. So you have to back up. Like when I started my business, it was like, well, before I can come up with the math, I have to ask myself, like, what could I help people with? Right? And what is the pain that relieves for them? So when I started, I helped people have a positive mindset, but I didn't stay at a positive mindset. I put a positive mindset towards generating income. And so every time you stack a benefit on top of your base level skill set or strength, you add value. Did you get that? So I didn't just help people have a positive mindset. I connected that with money. That could have been connected with marriage, right? It could have been connected with fitness, but I would never just stay in the fitness world. There's a girl right now online. You guys may know her. Great marketing. She basically says if you're a six-figure woman, so she's identified the client and identified the income bracket. If you're a six-figure woman or above, you have different challenges in staying fit than women who are making less money than that. And so, and then she spoke into, remember messaging? She spoke into, to generate six figures or generate $1 million, you are a different kind of woman. You have learned how to deal with pressure. You've learned how to deal with stress. You've learned how to manage your time, right? And typically the people in your life are pulling on you more because they know you're reliable, right? So whether it's corporate, whether it's entrepreneurship, you have figured out your attitude, and you have figured out how to manage people, and you figured out how to manage yourself, and you know how to prioritize the right thing. That's why you're generating the money. So there was a lot of people who got angry at her. That's a good sign. They're like, what makes a six-figure woman better than like a five-figure woman? Nothing. It's just the ideal client that she decided to focus on. And so she went deep into what does that woman's life look like? And then all she did was regurgitate that back to her. How many of you guys know when you feel seen, it's because somebody can articulate your life? Are you choosing an avatar, a person that actually backs into the income that you want to make? Or are you still operating in what you think you can get? Because the problem is if you are a victim or weak in any way, weakness comes from self-focus, in my opinion. If you are focusing, could you imagine, and I used to do this, I used to go out, and when I would price myself, it'd be like, can I get that? Will people pay that? And the problem with that is when I would speak, it would have a different tone in my voice. You guys follow me on this? So what does that mean? I got to go back to the origin of how I create something. And first you've got to say, or in my opinion, you don't got to do anything, but hopefully this helps you. First, I just need to do the math. And so for me, anything under $1 million a year is not generating enough income for me. And so that doesn't mean it needs to be for you. And so instead of you just working on the hamster wheel and working your days away and your weeks away, stop and do the math, because when your mind becomes clear, your path gets unstoppable. It simplifies, right? It simplifies. It's the best way I could say it. So do you think if I just focused on 10 people at 100,000, that my life would become a lot more simple than it is right now? Absolutely. 100%. It absolutely would. And I would have a 95% profit margin. And I ran the numbers, and I'm like, it would take me about 40 hours tops per client a year. So it'd be about 400 hours a year for 10 clients. And I could work 3 days a week, doing three to four calls a day, and have the rest of the month to focus on building a personal brand and grow my vision, my reach, my organic traffic. Okay, so what did I just show you that? Where did I get the profit margin? Okay, so Alicia, I went $1 million. I was like, what's it gonna cost me to lead that, right? Like not my hours, but I'm gonna need an accountant. And I put about $700 a month for an accountant for that, which then I wrote this down, and then I put then I put $36,000 a year for a VA, virtual assistant, so $3,000 a month for a virtual assistant. This works out to be $8,400 a year. So that in total was $44,400 is my cost to work with those 10 clients. Now, my cost doesn't really go up if I put 20 and make that 2 million. Because do you think my virtual assistant at $3,000 a month could handle 20 clients the same way she could hire 10? Yeah, so then my profit margin goes up even more. Are you guys understanding the levers a little bit different? So the key is, do you have a good virtual assistant? Right? Because the virtual assistant holds the wheels on. So many people scratch on this and they try and cheap out on their virtual assistant. That's not smart. My virtual assistant was the key person that helped me cross $1 million, my first million. And my virtual assistant is still one of the most important people in my life. They really are. And so I like virtual assistants that have tech. So I consider my tech team now still, they're not like my virtual assistant doing like my calendar booking anymore. They're doing more marketing tech, but that marketing tech, sending out my emails, making sure my emails get into inboxes, like this is stuff your mentors and coaches aren't responsible for. Do you know what I mean? Like you have to find a good key virtual assistant that understands tech to really close that gap for you guys, right? So we know a couple of them that are really good. If you want a VA, a tech VA, put VA in the chat. I'm happy to share those VAs with you. I used to own a VA company. I hated the business. It was absolutely awful, but I've still got some good referrals for people that are really, really strong. But this is everything. Could you imagine if all I had to do now, let me do the math so that you understand the math on this as well. How do I manage my mind on this before I figure out, will anybody spend $100,000? Okay, so the way they'll spend $100,000 is value. So I have to create enough value that the package works. That's actually the easy part. Okay, so what I'm first figuring out with all of that is I'm figuring out what is the package that I put in it, which I already told you guys. I do 2 hours a quarter. So I do a half VIP day every quarter. With these clients, I would do a monthly check-in call and I'd have a weekly tracker on them. So I could see their KPIs, their goals every single week to make sure that they're on track. And I would manage it. Like I would become their managing coach. Does that make sense? Yes? And I know that I could sell that because there's no way that they wouldn't generate at least double the return, I mean, I have clients that are generating, I had a client that took me 35 days to help her pop to $1 million a month. I've taken a lot of people from startup. This is not an income claim, by the way, but this is truth. I've taken people from food stamps to over $300,000 a year in a couple of years. Like I know if I had more time in the seat with somebody that I could more than make their $100,000 back. You know what I'm saying? So whether I wanted to take 20 people or 10, that just increases my profit margin because my team would stay the same there. You guys get it? Yes? Are you getting it? Okay, so when I back this in on the how would I do this, right? How would I, see my little belly now, guys? I got my pregnancy belly now. So now if you go to the how, now remember, you can put any price point in there. Like if I wanted $25,000, a $25,000 package, then I would need 40 people, right? So if I needed 40 people at 25,000, do you want me to run that number for you guys a little bit? If I needed 40 people to hit my $1 million at $25,000, that now is a heavier lift. I can't do the same package. So I have to go change the package because I could not do the same package. I would have no life at that point. Okay. So I have to think if this is a package. Do you think about in the dating world? A lot of these high-end dating companies, they just created a package for 25, 50, or 100,000 that relieved the buyer of their pain. Does that make sense? Like it relieved the buyer of their pain. So like when I wanted to get married and have children and I felt like my time was ticking and I looked back at my life, I was like, I get like 2 dates a year. I focus on my company. Like I'm not a good dater. So I hired a dating company. I hired a personal coach. I was on online, like I met Ash actually on Tinder. Funny thing is I met him on Tinder. So I was on Tinder, an online dating site. I had a high-end matchmaking company and I had a personal coach. And all of them helped me close my gap. I went from about 2 dates a year to 5 dates a week in 2 weeks. Okay, do you think that all of that investment helped? 100%. Now I have a family, I have a great husband, I have a great life. And, and if it wasn't for some of those staying on my team, I'm not sure I would have realized I had a great husband because I didn't know how to be a wife. Does that make sense? So it's like, whatever it takes, you got to have good investments with good people around me. I just have learned this. The trial and error game takes too long and we're just all getting older. And it's like the cost of not having money or the cost of not having love or the cost of not having your fitness in check is just too high for any of us to ever settle for. If we really got connected with the cost, like what we're really paying, right? Like what do we like? If you think about this for a second, pretend your goal is $500,000 a year. If you only make $50,000 in a year, the cost that year was $450,000. People don't understand money. Did you get that? If you want to make $500,000 a year and you made 50,000 last year, it cost you $450,000 to not either be in the right mindset or be aggressive with the right coach or hire the right virtual assistant. That is the cost. And every year that you have a number in your head that you don't hit, that's how you have to manage your mind. Is to go, the real cost is that, because there's no way that your income goals are not attainable. There's no way. There's just no way. So, but you cannot, in my experience, you cannot, I just saw somebody asking in our mastermind, Mentor Me Live. I saw somebody asking for permission, like if I add something to this package, should I add this thing to this package? My answer was, like in my head, I'm like, stop asking for permission. If you got a gut instinct to add something to a package, product or service, just do it. Because the thing that it's doing is building your belief system because you think the value is better. You can get tweaked later. It's better for you to manage your own emotions and your own belief system and add stuff because now you think your package or your price point makes more sense. And so you will have more conviction in what you say. And then you can start piecing things off so it's scalable. So sometimes like adding too much to a package is not scalable, but you'll learn that when you end up getting backed up against the wall. And that's good learning because you made the money while you were learning. Not making money while you're learning sucks. Can we agree on that? Yes? Yeah? So I'm going to pretend I'm doing 40 people at 20. This is daunting to me. But for some of you guys, you might go, okay, so 40 people divided by 12 months in a year, that's only, just over 3 enrollments a month. In my head, I'm like, let's do it faster. Okay. So if I generate 50 calls in a month, which is the equivalent of basically 1.5 a day. Okay, but if I generate 50 calls a month, now pay attention here. If I generate 50 phone calls a month for me or a salesperson, okay, if I generate now, so most of you guys know I teach people how to build prospect lists at the base level of everything, because everything at the base level is clients. I saw Alex Tormosi do a great video on the school platform, and he said most people start with their product when it's completely backwards. You start with your audience and then you find the product. And that's 100% of how I've been teaching for 16 years. And until you figure that out, that it all starts with your people, you will keep focusing on the product, and that's the wrong way to do it. You want to look at who are my people that would buy that, and then you figure out what needs to be in that to solve a problem for them. It's that simple. If you do not overthink this and you just allow yourself to be in a neutral space, you will figure out a package, product, or service, and you could do that in 15 minutes. And then you just put it out there and you test, right? You just test and you start adding things to it or taking things away from it, depending on if it sells too quick or if it's harder to sell. Add something to it, because you're just working with your own belief system most of the time. Okay, so everybody has money for things they want as long as it's a priority. Okay, so if I generate 50 calls and I have a 15% close ratio, that means 7.5. That means out of 50 calls, I'll have 7.5 closes at 25,000. That is easy to do in a month. If you don't know how to do that, I can show you how to do that. That is easy to do in a month. You do need to have a list or access to audiences. Whether you pay for it or whether you build it the way I teach you, which is highly influenced lists, it all starts with that, period. How do I have a client that just built a 3,300 person list make $45,000 in a month? And then I see people who have a 3,300 person list, build it in one list build in 30 to 60 days, and they don't list build for 6 years and wonder why they're selling the same product to the same 3,000 people and they're not buying. Because they've been listening to you for 5 years on the same product, sell a different product. If you're not going to list build, sell a different product, right? Like, solve the problem. You get it? So if I generate 50, so the first thing I think about is, how do I generate 100? Do I pay $20 a day in ads? Do I do another list build? Do I speak on a stage? It's all going to connect to audience. But when your energy on your off time is not at the fridge, is not at being confused, and locks into a simple plan, you realize a simple plan will make you more money than you running with your head cut off trying to do more. You get it? It'll completely change everything. So if I generate 100 leads and I have a 15% close, then I'm going to be at 15 closes in a month. If I take my 40 people to hit my $1 million divided by 15 closes in a month, this is 2.5 months and I've hit my $1 million gig. So now I want you to ask yourself, what do you need to figure out? What do you need to figure out? If you're a client of mine, I've already showed you how to generate these leads. Did you fall on your face? You need to pick yourself back up and go, because your coach is not going to be your knight in shining armor, right? Neither is your husband, neither is your wife, neither is your bestie. Like, you need to get a clear mind and figure out, what do you want? Do you want $1 million? Do you want 500,000? Stop going for the $50,000 marks, because it's not getting you ahead fast enough. The money is there, right? There's only a couple things you need to figure out. That is, who do you want to sell to? Actually, you should start with, what price point do you want to sell at? Right? I like the $100,000 client, the $60,000 client way more than I like the $1,000 client. You know why? The $1,000 client asks you 50 million questions, and they are exhausting. And they will steal every ounce of your life from your children. Okay? I also think that if you are a $1,000 buyer right now, this was one of the best things I could have told you, because you can be a $1,000 buyer and become a $100,000 buyer in a short amount of time. If you just chose it, you just chose that life and said, I'm going to sell a 25, a 100,000, a 50,000, right? My friend Bedros, who owns Fit Body Boot Camp, I remember him coming and training our clients at a mastermind, and his biggest takeaway was how many people are just charging too little. And they're just choosing a harder life because they think, I don't know how. None of us knew how. None of us knew how. Selling a $25,000 package, a $100,000 package, a $10,000 package, it's just a couple role plays. You just need somebody competent that knows how to sell it to role play with you. And we're everywhere, right? We're everywhere. Do you guys hear what I'm saying? I will end on this. I have somebody very close to me right now that is doing an event. And they partnered with another company that has done a lot of events. And that company will put about 2,500 people in the room. They've done it forever, like 20 something years. So they've partnered, they've become business partners. And this person really close to me goes, so I feel like I want to sell sponsorship. I want to sell booths for this event. I think I'm going to sell them at 2,500. You know what I said? And I was the only one who said this. I said, unfortunately, if you sell it at 2,500 with 2,500 people in the room, good vendors are going to think that's too cheap. They're going to think that's too cheap. And so you're going to end up with vendors that are exhausting to work with. You know, with that, and his concern is that he wants to make sure the vendors it's noble that the vendors make their money back, right? And I'm like, you have 2,500 people that will be at this event. It's not a guess, it's not a hope, that's their lowest number that will be at this event. Does that make sense? Like, it most likely will be higher, but that's their lowest number that will be at this event. And I said, out of 2,500 people event, if I had 2,500 people at one of my live in-person events, this is a live in-person event, I would be charging $20,000 to $25,000 for a booth. So I said, no matter what, at least charge 5,000 or 7,000. I go, because the client that's going to come in and nickel and dime you is not the one that's going to make your experience great, and you're not going to create great partnerships. You don't want the jewelry maker to be your vendor that's not making any money. Do you get what I'm saying, you guys? You want the person that really can help you and partner with you. It's like, I don't want to pick the husband for my life that is going to drag me down, right? I don't want to create friends in my life that are going to suck the life out of me. In fact, I just went through my friend list and I was like, who contributes to my life? Because I know I contribute to people's lives, right? What level of standard do you want to play at? So I'm gonna end on this piece and say, when I sat and asked myself, how would I generate this income? I first said to myself, who's the client that can afford mentally or financially, right? It's a drive, it's a mindset that wants a real breakthrough. They don't want to wait anymore, right? Who out there right now, you want a real breakthrough? Put a B in the chat. Like, you're like, I'm moving mountains, I'm going. Put a B in the chat. That's a mindset. Okay, that's not an income bracket, that's a mindset. And so you can have people on the low end of the financial spectrum that will figure it out because they know that the cost of them not doing it is so high, they've already figured that out. Like, they've gotten a clear mind. Do you see how this clear mind is everything? So I start with that. Secondly, I already know how to lead generate. If you've been around me at all, I teach it all over the place. You can't not find me somewhere talking about lists, right? Like, it's everything. So I'm not gonna spend time on that. So I already know how to generate that list. And many of you guys around me know. So stop delaying the launch dates, right? Like, stop. The sooner you get a mistake under your belt, or 3 or 4 mistakes, speed comes from mistakes. It does not, because it comes from experience. Your wisdom comes from experience. And so experience doesn't come from delaying and doing 1 or 2 campaigns in a year. It comes from doing a lot of them and being disappointed on every single one of them, which will make you a lot of money. It'll make you a lot of money to be disappointed on every single one of them because you moved at a speed level that really works. Speed is what creates the mistakes quicker, which means you get the wisdom faster, which then you become unbreakable, right? You pivot. So I start with the client, then I do the math. I make a decision, how much money do I want to make, and what do I need to charge, and how many people? Then I do the second set of math, which I say, how many people do I need to talk to? And you guys are meant to be live on our next training that we're going to do in about 10 minutes. The people who are meant to be live at 1%. I'm going to show you how to influence to be able to create income on your guys' call next, which is on a different Zoom. Okay, how to influence to be able to create income, because you got to be able to influence. Otherwise, that's why people have crickets and they don't buy. Okay, but how many people do I need to talk to? And what do I guess, I mean, now I'm not guessing, but what is my conversion rate going to be? I think 15% is a good number for most people. If you've been selling for a while, aim for 30% close. And you just reverse engineer the math. And then I ask myself, can I do that? This is where my belief system comes in. So if this number of how many people I talk to is too high for either I'm not willing to give up something in my lifestyle, right? And this is where you see the relentlessness. The more money people make, the more clear they get, because they become relentless that it's worth it. Like, it would be worth it for me to work for 2 months, 10 hours a day, to have freedom for 10 months out of the year. So I would work it out with my kid. I'd work it out with my husband. Do you know what I mean? Like, my husband just went into our Hardcore leadership training, and he's in there right now captaining a group of people going through. It's a training that builds belief. Does that make sense? And builds a clear mind. And, he's working like 12-hour days plus. And on top of it, he was really, really sick when he was in the training room just last week. He basically was in another bedroom for 2 weeks. Like, I'm not as the wife going, oh, I feel like I'm let down and I don't have time with my husband. No, he's working a vision. He has a vision to tool up some things in the training. So he's gone in, rolled up his sleeves, and is doing it. Do you guys see what I'm saying? So I don't put pressure on my husband like I need you. It's like, I'll get him when he's done. You know what I mean? So this is about enrolling the people in your life. I should do a whole training around this. Like, how do you create agreements with the people in your life to give you the space to be able to do that, right? But ultimately, I'm asking myself, can I do that? Do I believe that that number is doable? Now, I will tell you something. The price point, it doesn't matter if you believe. That is a skill enhancement, and I've usually found anywhere between 3 and 5 role plays where we role play you selling your product, service, or whatever at the price that intimidates the shit out of you, right? When you role play, think about that, 3 to 5 to 6 times of role playing with you, and you pop. So the skill set of selling a higher priced offer is not the problem. I got you. The challenge is do you have a clear mind? And will you settle into just such a clear plan that you stop throwing spaghetti up against the wall? And so this comes down to making decisions. My clients hear this all the time. The power of making decisions will determine your ability to lock into a simple plan and go after it. How many of you guys would love to work with 10 people and make $1 million? How many of you guys would like to figure out how to enroll 40 people and make $1 million? 3 people a month, right? Do you think do you think you could probably do that if I could help you close the gap on being comfortable with the price point and what to put in it? Yes. So now my question is where's your drive? Because you could have done this without me. You could have sat down, unbusied your day, read the Bible, read Wayne Dyer, listened to your gospel music, I love Andre Bocelli, right? Like listen to something that gets you up And you could have sat there and spoke some positive things over your life and changed your atmosphere and grabbed a piece of paper and pen, and you could have done this without me. And so I say this constantly. It comes down to our leadership, you guys. Our coaches are not going to increase our leadership. Most of the time, our spouses or romantic partners, not always, but most of the time, they're at the biggest disbelief because they know they're so close to you that they know your strengths and your weaknesses. And so often that doesn't help you develop your leadership. Who are you hanging out with? What does the ecosystem look like? Okay. If you've ever done my hardcore leadership program, you understand that what happens in our rooms is that people get unleashed, but then they got to practice. Does that make sense? Like we take them through a 4-month training. They set a really big goal. Like, do you think in 4 months, if you just locked in to your vision and you said, I'm going to sell $25,000 packages, what is that? $500,000, about $500,000, close to $500,000. I'm going to do that in 4 months. You could do that in my leadership program. It's wild to me how there's a small percentage of people who do it, and then other people pick like lesser goals. And I'm like, when you're in a container that you can go after something, or you've got friends around you, or maybe you're lucky enough and you've got a romantic partner around you that has the drive, that maybe annoys you a little bit because they have the drive, right? They're getting up and they're going, you're like, oh, would you just chill out? I was like, no, don't chill them out. Because energy is a beautiful thing. And when it's there, you should ride it, right? Because some people know the seasons of when you don't have it. But imagine if you could take 4 months, have 20, enroll 20 people at 25,000, make $500,000. Do you think that would be a good coaching program? 100%, but you have to lock onto that. Because everybody around you supports your vision, whether you believe it or not. They support your vision because the way you talk about it, how clear you are, or if you're all over the place, they are behind you or they are in front of you, pushing you back. And that comes down to your leadership. So I end all of this to say, because I got to go to Mentor Me Live and train them on how to influence Liz. I say all that to say that if you spend today locking into a simple plan like that, you will do well. If you are in a situation where you know, how many of you guys know you need to increase your leadership? Put L in the chat. It's the number one thing I work on with myself is my leadership. I'm working right now on a leadership characteristic inside me to be able to scale the company, and I have to change. Know this, write this down. You are at fault for everything. I am at fault for everything. That is the only way we can get ourselves out of blame, right? Is the only way we can get ourselves out of blame is we are at fault for everything. I'm going to tell you, if you haven't focused on your leadership at the level that you should, your year depends on it. So I'm going to give you a link if you have an interest in talking to us about leadership. That wasn't the purpose of this training today, but you know, there's nothing worse than being afraid to talk to the trainer at the front of the room because you don't want to bother them. You want to bother them. You want to bother me. You want to go after it. You want to make this year great. And I'm going to tell you, I can train things like this and people will go on and they'll be the same confused mind. You know it. Same confused mind. And they will get in their own way. If you get in your own way, I really highly recommend you talk to us about leadership. I'm going to drop you a link. It's Coach Shanda or Shanda Coach. Is it Shanda Coach, you guys? ShandaCoach.com, I think. Oh, it is. ShandaCoach.com. I asked them last night to create this for you guys because I know that when I was struggling to build my life and build my business, I knew that I was the only thing that stopped me from getting in the way. I knew it. I knew it because I saw people get unleashed around me. I saw people go from stuck to success. And I'm like, what changed? The world didn't change. It wasn't like all of a sudden people came around them and like gave them money or gave them this. They got relentless. They became the person that it took to be able to follow through. After 17 years of being in the coaching industry, I will tell you, there is a very clear path to who's the most successful. It's the person that sits in the room, watches the trainer and says, I'm going to be up on that stage. And something shifts in them. And if you look at Russell Brunson, you look at like myself, you look at, Sarah Blakely, you look at Suzanne Evans, all of us are doing something hard to take ourselves on to break our character to the next level. How many of you guys want to break your character to the next level? I certainly do. I want to fail bigger. I want to play bigger, but I don't want to stay down. I've got to change my character. You've got to change your character to go next level. So we don't have a training this month, but we do have a training next month. So if you want to talk to us, you can go to shandacoach.com, SHANDA for you guys on social media right now, shandacoach.com. And you can talk to us about May and what it would look like if we took you for 4 months on a plan like this and we broke you through. You have to pick the plan. If you pick the plan, I promise you, I will coach you to hit the result. Is that a good deal? You guys, yes? Okay, so I will end on this and say, you got this. But nobody's coming to coach you there by yourself. You got to come up with a plan. And if you come up with that plan, and I'm going to challenge every single person watching, whether you're my client or you're not, I'm going to challenge every single person watching. Don't go to bed tonight without locking yourself into the math. And now that becomes your roadmap. Don't wait for a roadmap for somebody else. That becomes your roadmap. And then you'll be clear. It's leads and how do I sell it? That's it. Those are the two things. Once you're clear on that, there's only two things for you to focus on. Leads and how do I sell it? Role play, list build. You're done. You have a tipping point year. Let's not overcomplicate it. All right, you guys are meant to be live. You'll be getting a text or an email if you haven't gotten it yet. I'll see you guys on your next call. And everybody else, I'll see you next Tuesday on Shanda On Demand. God bless. Talk to you soon. Bye.
Bye.
Bye. You're so welcome.
Bye. Thank you, Shanda.
Thank you.
Awesome, Shanda.
Thank you so much.
Thanks, Shanda.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you,
You're
Shanda.
welcome. You're welcome.